My guest on the Brian Snow Show has a motto: work smarter, not harder. But as we found out before we aired, when technology decides to throw you a kick in the tail, that work smarter, not harder thing tends to go backwards quite a few times. And I joked with her before coming on air, you don't want to see half of the stuff I have to go through. Let me bring her on. Let me bring her on right now because this is going to be another delightful conversation. E.J. Ford now joins me. How are you, my dear? Great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me today, Ryan.
I figured I'd start with a laugh because we share something. We share something in common. When I switched from terrestrial radio to internet radio, if you only knew the piles of technological problems that I've had going from tape delay, broadcasting my games, doing stuff live, and as you told me before we came on, I had to find what I need to find. And you know what happens to me often when I look for things. This is why I wanted to highlight your motto of work smarter. When I look for things and I try to organize them, I shout to my beautiful wife Jody, who always told me if you don't write it down, it doesn't exist, which is so true.
Oh,
I
yeah.
look over here to my left and I see everything that I have to do, but I don't see the checklist that comes with it. And then when we shared a laugh before we came on,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
why that's why I said you can't. Sometimes technology gives you a kick in the tail when you don't want it to. This would be one of those times.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What?
Yes, technology can be overwhelming for sure. When you own your business, there's always something new, there's always something changing, and a
Mm-hmm.
huge list to keep track.
How do you deal with it? Because sometimes for me, I get up and walk away and then try to put the puzzle back. When you get up and walk away from your computer and you try to put the puzzle back together, it's still missing that same big piece. And you're
Well,
going, wait a minute. I thought I got rid of this.
I have a strategy that actually works. So I'm a morning person, and I find that no matter what I do, with work, everything works better in the morning.
Right.
So I always put things that are important, and it really needs my full attention in the earlier part of my day.
Right.
And then when I have boggles and I get into these problems when there are problems, that
Right.
normally happens in the second part of the day. So before I got really stressed and I thought that, oh, this
Hmm.
is just not working. And now what I do, I step away from it and I go back in the morning. And for some reason, by the morning, it sort itself out. And I sit down to the task or the issue and it's like, oh, I can fix this. And then I fly through it very easily. So I think it's important for us to understand how we function and when we are at our best. That's really, I think, doesn't matter what kind of technology you use, that always comes back to me.
How big of a key is it to like just step away and reset and refocus? And there were a lot of times I would put a time limit on how much time I can be away and refocus. And the last couple of years, I discovered, I don't have to put a time limit on it. If you can't figure it out, then step away from it, like you said. And
Yeah.
then when the next day happens or the next morning happens, in this case, you finally you figure things out. How important is it, especially as an entrepreneur running your own business, to not get so overwhelmed that you not only lose focus of the task at hand, but you lose the rest of your day with the tasks that you have?
I think it starts with planning. So if you have a really clear list for yourself for the
Mhm.
week, for the day, for the months, and even longer, then you can basically put yourself in a situation when you don't have a lot of unexpected turns. If you face a challenge, I'm completely fine to step away from it for a day. Of course, it's good not to have a time pressure on it, because then it's a different thing, right? So, of course, sometimes I just step away, I do something else for a half an hour, 20 minutes, and then I go back and it helps. If I can, I step away for longer. And yeah, I think that that is pretty much the best solution in my life.
When you got started with your business, EJ Media, and I read your bio about finding the mental and the physical balance, and that's a journey that I've been on, since I've been in sportscasting. I've been in sportscasting 30 years, and it's only been lately, I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, where it's been so important for me to find that mental and physical balance. When you got started, how did you discover that you needed to have that?
Well, I learned it the hard way, really. I had a corporate career, and when I had my child, I realized that that won't work with lifestyle. I'll work too much, long hours. I had no power over my daily schedule. So I started my business. And of course, at the beginning, I took everything and anything that I could do. I took a lot of free work, um, worked under my rates just to sort of build a reputation, build the experience, and feel confident. And after a while, I thought that I'm burned out, I'm tired, and unhappy about actually what I love to do. And then I had to step back and I say, okay, something is not right here. And I decided to restructure my pricing, my time management, and basically make a commitment to myself that no matter what, I will exercise 4 times a week. And if I don't do that, then I let myself down. This is my commitment to myself. And I keep to that to today. So I learned to say no, which I think was the biggest learning in the whole business career, because you have to be protective of your own space, be it your time, your mental health, your physical health, and your business in overall. You cannot be successful if you wear yourself out.
When I first started announcing games, I took any and every assignment that I could. And like you, I
Right?
took a lot of free work. I started in 1995. I took a lot of free work, and it took me, I would say, some 15 years to realize you don't have to take every single assignment.
Exactly.
Now I pick and choose my assignments. I still get ridiculed today that I'm not working for a major sports network, and I look at those people and go, I don't want to. I'm not in the process of working for a major network. I'm in the process of building a major network to knock them all off. And my wife jumped in day one, and she just says, how can I help you do it? She has been my biggest supporter. She has been my biggest critic when it comes to time management, because I've been horrible at time management when I started, to a point where she gave me a box of notebooks and forbade me from going to Walmart and buying any more notebooks and bringing them in the house until I used those. But her illustrated point to me was that you already have the supplies. Use them smartly, use them well. That's what she illustrated to me with that. Not to mention we're overrun with notebooks in the first place, because she takes a lot of notes in doing her job also, and build in building her business. I'm going to ask a question I know my wife will be proud of me to ask, and it's something I ask every day. How important is it to write everything down?
Hmm. Very. Um, in short, I don't really like my handwriting, so that's a long time struggle for me, and
Understood.
it's struggle is real. I have two settings. One of them is the writing of an 8 years old, and then something that even I can't read a half an hour later. So I have to be very conscious to make sure that if it's something important, I write it in a way that I can look back. But yeah, I very strongly believe that I make checklists for myself. I make plans. I have, without advertising the brand, I have a wonderful
I love
paper
it.
notebook that I'm really faithful since I started my business. So it is actually a yearly pilgrimage for me to go to this store and choose the color for next year.
Right.
And my husband thinks that I'm absolutely crazy. And I'm really, really, and I'm doing this for years to the point that I get stressed ahead of going to the store because I know what colors will be for next year, and then I
Right.
need to make a decision what to choose. So yes, I strongly believe in handwriting and looking like planning. I think planning is really important. That comes
It
with the
is.
handwriting, right?
It is. I've gone through so many of these little notebooks right here. I have a stack of them here in this here in this cabinet. And my wife took a look and she says, "Okay, you can hold on to those, but keep using the ones I gave you. I gave you also." But it's so important, and I've had to relearn this so many times over. I mean, if you bang your head against the wall long enough, you'll understand getting organized is so important. Writing it down, putting it in your electronic calendar, emailing yourself things and tasks that you need to do. It all goes into your motto of working smarter and not harder. And it's so key, especially when you're an entrepreneur, especially when you have your own business, especially when you want to get something accomplished, that you have everything written down. And I've had to relearn that lately, especially with my schedule being as crazy as it is, to block some time, thank you, Jody, to work on my website, to do my articles, to plan my tapings, to plan my promotion. I'm finally getting it, and I have to be totally honest. I'm finally getting it to a point where my wife would walk by and see me, and she'll just lean in and go, "You're finally understanding." Believe me, folks, it took a very long time for me to get to that point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's learning. I think it's mistakes. You make the mistakes, you get overwhelmed, and then you go through the journey of fixing them. Sometimes it takes 2 minutes, and sometimes 12 years.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes it takes minutes, sometimes it takes years. What turned the light on for you to say, "I'm going to be independently wealthy and I'm going to run my own business"? What was the straw that said, "You know what? I'm just going to launch and do this"?
There were a few things. First of all, as I mentioned, that I came from a corporate background where I was not able to manage my time, and I thought it was really frustrating, especially when I was pulled into endless meetings about how things should be going better, what is
Mhm.
the most effective way to work, while I was actually on a meeting and not actually working.
Right.
And then I felt like that I want to be in charge of my own time, my own decisions, and and when I started to work for myself, I realized that that should have been always the way for me. And I'm really grateful for my previous training because I learned standard and strategies and customer service and a lot of really, really useful things that I might have not learned on my own. So I think everything happens for a reason. But when I started to work for my own, I loved it. And they say that you leave a 9 to 5 job, which for me never been a 9 to 5, but you leave a 9 to 5 job to work 24/7.
Yes.
And when my daughter was born, I felt a little bit like that either I was with her or working with a little bit of sleep sprinkled in. And I was still happier, and it made me really feel accomplished. And when I made money on my own and that money showed up on my bank account, I felt more joy than I ever got for getting paid as a salary. So that was the beginning. And then, of course, it wasn't perfect at the beginning. If anything, it was very far from perfect. So I spent the next couple of years trying to figure out what works, what not. I made a lot of mistakes, and I think all those mistakes serve me right to make it better, to understand what is possible and what not. And and today I feel quite confident in all the things I can do, I cannot do, and I'm very happy to say no. And what I do makes me really happy. And I think happiness is really a key, because if you want to do something just for the money, then that's not a strong enough driving force. Yes, it is important, but it's not enough. You have to show up every day to do the actual work with some happiness in your heart.
You have to. And that's, as I mentioned, over 3 decades in sports media. That's something that I have learned and will learn over and over and over again. And I know and understand that. Tell me about EJ Media. What goes into EJ Ford Media? I said it incorrectly. I apologize. What made you start EJ Ford Media?
Well, that is the business I run for the last over 10 years, and it shaped a little bit, I have to say. And especially recently, I made some changes to my business, because in the past I worked, it's always digital marketing, it's always business strategy. So that is something that I offer regularly. I work with small businesses, startups, help them to build a successful business with strategy, with some focus. And I try to input everything that, like, where I made mistakes, try to help people not to do those mistakes and avoid them, and have a structure where they can build a business with automation, um, not to be too repetitive, and spend as little time as possible with the daily grind, so they can focus building their business instead of getting bogged down in their business.
I'm gonna need a few more lessons of that. EJ Ford joining me, and I am dead serious when I say that. You would think I don't know all the answers. I don't want to know all the answers. I want to learn every day as I go. And talking to you has been such a delight. Tell everybody where they can find you, my dear.
They can find me at ejfordmedia.com, and I'll be very happy to connect with people who are looking to build their business, who are struggling with overwhelm and feeling tired, and looking for a way to make their business automated and work for them even when they are sleeping.
I'm definitely going to put out a feeler for EJ Ford Media to help Snowman Multimedia. I really mean that. It's been such a delight to have you, EJ Ford, joining us here on the Brian Snow Show. Thank you, EJ. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian.